this meeting to order so that we can be timely and conscious of everyone's time this afternoon. Just thank you to everyone and welcome to this meeting of the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues. With that, I would like to start with the roll call. So Denise will go around and announce you. And so once your name is called, folks, if you could just unmute and then say your name, position, and where you're coming from today, that would be great.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, first, this meeting will be broadcast live on CTN Cable 16, AT&T Channel 99 rather, and online at a2gov.org, watch CTN. To speak in public comment, call toll free 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099. Enter meeting ID 919-8673-1455. Thank you. 1 second. That Alex in? Okay. It's just 4 o'clock, so. Okay. Commissioner Budden is absent. Councilmember Ghazi Edwin.
Present from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Shea Damon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Zach Damon, Chairman, Commission on Disability Issues, coming from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Washtenaw County.
Man, as we speak. Commissioner Hawkins, not here yet. Commissioner Poster, not here. Hold on. Okay. Commissioner Gossage.
Present. Good afternoon, everybody, from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Mozak.
Yes, hello. Commissioner Kathleen Mozak calling in from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Keeler.
This is Vice Chair Keeler, Vice Chair Commissioner Keeler calling in from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
And Commissioner Solomon.
Matthew Solomon, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Washtenaw County, USA, Commissioner.
Thank you. I have our commissioners coming in. 1 second. Okay. Commissioner Poster. Okay. So we have a quorum.
Thank you. I will move forward to the approval of today's agenda. For all attending today, hopefully you should have received with the meeting invite, you should have also received a digital copy of today's agenda for review. But of course, if you have not reviewed this copy of the agenda, myself and/or Denise can provide a copy of the agenda for you and put it in the chat. But I would just like to take a moment to give time to review this agenda. And if there are any corrections, edits, or amendments to today's agenda at this time, please feel free to speak up. If there are not any of those things in today's agenda, then would there be a motion to approve today's agenda?
I'll move to approve.
All right, Larry.
Second.
Okay, Larry moves to approve the agenda. I have reviewed. I do not see any edits or anything to be corrected as of yet in today's agenda. We have Commissioner Radcliffe, who seconded the approval of the agenda. All commissioners in favor of approving today's agenda, please unmute and say aye.
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 All right. Thank you. Today's meeting agenda has been approved. Also, my connection is running slowly, so please do not think I'm being antisocial by turning my camera off. I just want to make sure that everyone is able to hear me adequately. Next, we are going to move down to our next part, of the agenda. And I just want to acknowledge any public comment. If there is anybody listening at this time, that they let Denise know so that they can have public comment at this time. Please note that you will have 3 minutes to speak. Denise, do we have anyone on for public comment?
I don't have anyone at the present time.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Okay. Next, I'd like to move down to our special presentation. Oh, Kathleen, you had a question?
I was just wondering if we were going to approve the minutes from last
Yeah.
time, or we were going to put that off.
Oh,
till
I'm
later.
so sorry. Yes, I skipped over that.
That's what I was ready to say. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Pardon me, folks. So I'll back up to the approval of the meeting minutes from March 2023. All of you again should have approved or have seen the minutes, should have received a copy of that within the agenda. I'd like to open it up. If anyone has reviewed these minutes and has corrections or amendments to the March meeting minutes, please feel free to mention them at this time. If not, I would like to move forward with the motion to approve the March meeting minutes for the last meeting.
Zach, I will move to approve.
Okay, Kathleen will move to
Second.
approve. I will
I
second.
second it.
Oh,
Debbie?
we can put Debbie on there.
Debbie.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're okay.
Okay,
You're okay. We can put Debbie on there as the second. I have reviewed. I did not see any incorrect things in the meeting minutes. So, all in favor of approving the Commission on Disability Issues March 2023 meeting minutes? If in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Great. Pardon me for skipping over that, and thank you, Commissioner Mozak, for your attentiveness. Next, moving on to our special presentations. I really am excited to welcome this gentleman, and I know that council member, Edwin has had done some great work with Mr. Carpenter as well. So I'd like to, at this time, open the floor to Mr. Matt Carpenter, the Chief Executive Officer of the RIDE. And Matt, thank you so much for being here. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. It's a pleasure. I'm honored to be invited. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today and really just have a dialogue. I'm flattered that the agenda lists me as a special presenter. I think that gives me more credit probably than I deserve. But I want to maybe start by making sure before I start talking that I'm answering the question you actually care about. My understanding is that a question was raised here at this body maybe a couple of months ago, and that question was handed off to Councillor Edwin, who then gave me a call. We had a very productive conversation. She invited me back here to hear the answer, that all of you could hear the answers from me and from the RIDE. So, to paraphrase, and Mr. Chair, you and your commission can correct me if I get this wrong, and because I just want to make sure before I say anything, I'm answering the question you actually care about. The question that came to me was, does the RIDE plan to begin offering same-day paratransit service on the A-RIDE system at any point in the future? This is something we had done in the past. It stopped kind of over the pandemic, and we haven't restarted that same-day service. And I think that was the question that originated here and then bounced from the counselor to me and brought me back to you. Does that sound about right? And maybe the counselor would like to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I want to turn it over to the commission. Does that sound about right, or is there anything specific that wasn't mentioned?
This is Zach, and that sounds about right. In my records, to everyone on the call here, we weren't sure if that service was going to be, continued and if it was planned to be started up again in the future. Now, if there are any additions to that question at this time, I would like to, encourage some other commissioners to also add on if there is anything else. But to my records, Mr. Carpenter and the rest of the commission, that is correct.
Good. That, sometimes when you play the telephone game, things can get a little garbled. What I might suggest, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, is I'll just give you a direct answer to that question. And then if that leads to other questions and a dialogue, I'd love to just engage with you for as long as you'll tolerate me.
Sure.
Wonderful. So I'm sure many of you on the commission are familiar with the RIDE. We're the public transit authority and provider here for the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti area. We were about 52 years old as an agency. We've been around for quite some time. Our paratransit service, we have a number of services. Obviously, most people are familiar with the large buses running on schedules on many streets around the region. But we also have the A-Ride service. And A-Ride has been a part of the community now, at least since the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, and possibly longer than that. We've had some sort of, Larry knows. We've had some sort of demand response service, which is different than the scheduled big buses. We've had some sort of demand response service specifically for persons with mobility challenges. We've had that, I would guess, since at least the 1980s. It might be a little older than that even. So that service, A-Ride, is a paratransit service, and it's governed by the Americans with Disabilities Act, which provides very clear legal requirements for how that service is supposed to operate. And what the ADA says is that it is a shared ride public transit service. It was never intended as a taxi service. However, for many years, the RIDE contracted with local taxi companies to provide that service. Some of your commissioners may recall that not too long ago, a lot of A-Ride vehicles were actually sedans. They were cars, not lift-equipped vans or small buses. Does that sound familiar to any of you? I see a few heads nodding. It's very much within recent memory that was the case. And that actually leads into one of the challenges that we recognized. I think we really only became aware of it around about 2018. And we're starting to take some steps to address it when the pandemic hit. When taxi services are sort of mingled with a paratransit service, you run the risk of treating people differently, of disparate treatment. So just to hit it right on the nose, a person with a wheelchair cannot easily use a sedan. They may not be able to use the sedan at all. It would be illegal for me to try to require someone in a wheelchair to use a sedan. The taxi companies that we used were sort of commingling taxi customers with paratransit customers sometimes because they owned the sedans. Until a few years ago, we didn't own our own paratransit vehicles. That's a relatively recent thing. Somehow, and I confess I haven't been here long enough to fully understand the history. At some point, we began providing ADA says paratransit service must be available to everyone. First come, first served basis, including anyone in a wheelchair. Therefore, your vehicle must be able to carry wheelchairs. That's a critical part of it. At some point in the past, and I don't understand the history, somehow we also started offering same-day service with the sedans. Now, the A-Ride system, has sort of a minimum 24 or 48-hour advanced reservation booking system, and that's in the Americans with Disabilities Act. But this sedan service didn't comply with that. It was available, in less than a day advanced booking. And I think that's what was the germination of this initial question is, are you bringing back the same day trip? The same day trip was provided with those sedans. What we realized in 2018 is that we may have inadvertently been treating our customers in a somewhat discriminatory fashion. We did not offer same day service to people in wheelchairs, but we did offer it to ambulatory people who could use a sedan. That is not what the Americans with Disabilities Act is about. That is not, in my opinion, legal. And it's certainly not the way we want to treat residents of this area. So while a great many ambulatory residents and customers, I think, enjoyed that same day service, the same advantage was not provided to people in wheelchairs. And therein lies the problem. Now, to provide that same day service for folks in wheelchairs would require us to have, the entire fleet to be wheelchair accessible. And you may notice that we have phased out the sedans, and we are, everything we run now, including minivans, I think, is wheelchair accessible. But that same day service is expensive. I'm just going to be right up front about it. And it's not required by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So until such time as we can figure out how to pay to provide the same level of service to everyone in the community and not run afoul of discrimination law, we're not in a position to be able to bring that back. Right now, where we are with our board's long-range plan is continuing to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. We have eliminated the concerns that I've all just spent some time discussing, and really focusing on making the totality of the transit system much, much better for everybody. And really that is about beefing up the fixed route system. And a lot of people can use the fixed route system, even if they have some sort of mobility limitation. But as the fixed route system expands, particularly for the hours of operation, and we are going to be running longer hours of operation in the next, I think in late 2024, the millage we passed a little while ago included that. As those hours of operation for the fixed route service expand, the A-Ride system will also expand with it. So folks will be able to use that as well. The two systems are legally tie-barred together. If I expand the fixed route system, I must legally expand the paratransit system as well. So that automatically happens. So as the fixed route system grows, the paratransit system will increase as well in a commensurate way. We will continue to comply with the ADA and any other applicable law. But at this time, we're not planning to bring back the same day services. And really, that's a cost-driven thing, because if we do it for one group, we need to do it for everybody, and that's only fair. So that's my direct answer. I think that's the answer I gave to Councillor Edwin, and she thought it would be good for me to come and make sure everyone heard me say that directly. So, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions or go however you'd like with the conversation.
Wonderful, Matt. Thank you so much, first of all, for the detailed explanation, but also, for your time and also giving a perspective that maybe, others wouldn't have seen. One quick question I do have for you, then I'll open it to a couple of more, if you don't mind, for some questions. But so with it being a matter of cost for the same day, what options are you exploring going forward to cover that cost and make sure that, once that service is able to be provided in a cost-effective way, what measures are you looking at going forward to where it can be financially sustainable for you?
So to answer your question as directly as I can, we don't have any plans at this time to try to restore that same day service. We're not budgeting for it. We're not asking the taxpayers to increase the millage to pay for it. So our plan is to maintain the required ADA services throughout the entire area and expand them as we expand the fixed route service. Otherwise, the intent is to make the fixed route service as attractive as it possibly can be. We continue to allow anyone who is eligible for the A-Ride service to ride the fixed route buses for free. And that's very intentional. So we really think that that's the best way to provide accessibility and access to opportunity for everyone in the community, including anybody with mobility limitations. However, if someone's mobility limitation makes it impossible for them to use the fixed route service, A-Ride will be there. Admittedly, we'll have to book in advance, but that is the industry norm.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. We have a couple of questions. I'll first go to Commissioner Solomon, and then after that, we'll go to Commissioner Radcliffe.
Thanks for that presentation. My question is really about how the determination is made between individuals who are eligible for a free ride, let's say on the city bus, versus individuals who are eligible for a ride. And I'm not sure what the charge would be for individuals with disabilities who are doing advance notice transportation through a ride. If you could just kind of clarify that picture, how that system works, and specifically who's eligible.
Absolutely. Great question. Who is eligible for A-Ride? Again, this goes back to the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is all written out and prescribed at a federal level. Paratransit, when it was sort of codified in 1990, Congress made a very clear description of who would be eligible for this service. And essentially, it was for anyone who is not able to use the fixed route service due to a mobility limitation. So the two systems are supposed to work as complements to each other. The fixed route system is there, but for anyone who is not able to access it, for example, they cannot walk to the nearest bus stop. Let's say they can walk or they're in a wheelchair, but there is no sidewalk to get them to the nearest bus stop. There are many, unfortunately, still many examples in our community where you'll have no sidewalk gap, or you'll have a sidewalk and it gets you next to the bus stop, but then there's still a strip of grass between the sidewalk and the curb. If that kind of physical barrier prevents someone from being able to access the fixed route system, either at the beginning or the end of their trip, that's how we determine they are eligible for the A-Ride system. So different kinds of, so is there an accessible path of travel at the origin point and destination point? Is someone's mobility impairment such that, maybe there is an accessible path of travel, but they become too tired too quickly to make it there? Those are the sorts of practical tests that the ADA requires. It even goes far as to say there's something called conditional eligibility. Let's say it's winter time and the bus stop is, right outside your house. But in the winter, there's so much snow on the sidewalk that for all intents and purposes, you can't get there. When there's snow on the ground, you become eligible. When the snow has been cleared, you're no longer eligible. It can get that specific, and all of that is codified in the ADA. So
do individuals self-report? Do individuals self-report?
No. So that's the eligibility process. The certification process is how we apply those rules. So some of my colleagues are on the call today, Tracy and Robert, and they could go into more detail. But essentially, we do a means test to double check. I think we accept sort of doctor's notes, frankly, at this point. If a medical professional certifies that someone is not able to use a fixed route bus, that's good enough for us. I know other cities with much more severe budget pressure, sometimes have to go so far as to invite applicants to a special testing facility and watch them climb a flight of stairs, for example. We don't go that far. I think we will take a doctor's note as an attestation.
And you said you made a distinction between people who are eligible to ride the city bus for free and individuals who would have to, I assume, pay for a ride. What is that charge?
Sure. So, and again, the A-Ride paratransit systems under the ADA were set up to kind of mirror the fixed route system. So ADA says that transit agencies like us, I think, can charge up to double the fixed route fare to use paratransit. And here's why Congress allowed that. The cost to carry someone on the big bus is about $5. The cost to carry someone on the paratransit vehicle, last I saw, was around $40 per trip in each case. And that's just the difference of economies of scale. The paratransit system is simply much more expensive per trip. So Congress allowed that difference in the fares to help compensate for that. Here, I think we follow that law with our fares for A-Ride. What's different in Ann Arbor, and this gets to your question, we decided to go a little bit beyond this, and this is a voluntary decision the ride took many years ago. We decided anyone who's eligible for A-Ride, if you've gone through the process and we've certified you, we will let you ride the fixed route bus for free. That's a local decision that we've made, like I said, many years ago, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So if someone is eligible for A-Ride and they take an A-Ride trip, they will need to pay whatever the fare is for that particular trip. If they choose to make that trip on the fixed route bus, their A-Ride card will allow them to ride for free.
Thanks for that information.
And if I might, there's kind of two reasons for that. One is sort of a good citizen thing, but there's also, if I may be blunt, a real self-interest there, simply because it costs us so much less if someone rides the large buses, the scheduled buses. It allows us to make sure that the paratransit service continues to exist and is effectively reserved for people who really genuinely need it. And I think that's one of the most important things about a paratransit system. It's a lifeline for independence, and there's only so much of it to go around. We only have so much of a fleet. So we need to make sure that it continues to be available for those who really need it. And anyone who can use the fixed route system kind of frees up a space for someone else. So there's kind of a double thing there. I see some other questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your response to that, Mr. Carpenter. And thank you, Commissioner Solomon, for your insightful questions. We'll open it up to just a couple more questions after this, and then unfortunately we'll have to move on. But I'd like to now call on Commissioner Radcliffe, and then we'll go to Commissioner Gossage.
Thank you, Commissioner Damon, and thank you, Mr. Carpenter, for being here and giving your explanations today. I have a lead up to a question. I remember pre-pandemic that A-Ride in the 2000s, they had the the special paratransit bus as well that provided services. And during one of the taxi company contracts, at least, there were accessible vans at that time as well. And so I'm kind of wondering, one question is, when the decision came to say, we can't go back to same day service because it's not equitable amongst the group of people who are taking A-Ride, was there some sort of audit that had occurred that led you to come to that decision? Like, was there a federal audit or internal audit or just complaints? And also, it sounds like going forward, at least for now, that A-Ride intends to honor more of the letter of the law versus the kind of the spirit of the law, in some fashion, because I know you had brought up how in some ways we do go above and beyond what other cities and transportation agencies do in terms of our paratransit services. But on the other side is, I know that on the federal government side, through the Department of Transportation, one of their initiatives is to go beyond the ADA and go into accessibility. And that includes providing certain funds for accessible transportation, particularly, with the bus services, mobility services in communities. And so are we going to, in the future, if that continues, look towards using some of that funding for our services?
So I'll try to unpack. You had several.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Maybe I'll take the most difficult one first in terms of, whether we intend to try to provide a higher level of service for every paratransit person. Can that be done? Absolutely. It's simply a matter of money. And therein lies the bit of the challenge. It's not a small amount of money. At $40 per trip, paratransit is a very expensive service. Prior to the pandemic and prior to some of these changes, A-Ride was the fastest growing expense in our budget and had become a source of concern to the board and sort of the cohesion of the budget. However, since then we've done a lot of public involvement. We've passed, or our board has adopted a 25-year transit plan. We specifically went out and asked a variety of people around the community, what do you want the transit system to be in 25 years? We didn't hear a lot of requests for augmented paratransit service. Most of the comments we heard were about expansion of fixed route service, a bigger geographic footprint, higher frequencies. So that's what the plans and frankly millages that the ride has sought since then have been geared towards. However, if the community, if the community tells us that what they really want is a higher level of paratransit service, then that's just a question of money. And can we get enough money to do that? And where would that money come from? And frankly, do we have to make any difficult trade-offs in order to afford that? But I'm not fundamentally opposed to it. I would never say never. It's just a level of service and cost discussion. And I think our board would look to hear from the community as to whether or not that is a high priority for a large percentage of the population. And if so, how would we do it? So I'm not saying no, I'm just saying it's not on the books today. Some of your other questions in terms of sort of how did we recognize the challenge with using sedans and the wheelchair accessible buses. There was no audit. I'm going to be direct about it. It was really visually apparent to new management. As new people came in, we had some generational turnover on the staff. New people with a new set of eyes started looking at stuff and asking direct questions. How is this not discriminatory? And there really didn't turn out to be an answer to that question. So no audit, just immediately obvious. In terms of the fleet, yes, we still have what we call the paratransit bus. And that is your sort of standard A-Ride vehicle. It's what we call a cutaway. It looks like maybe a delivery truck or a shuttle van. It's usually a Ford E350 vehicle with the passenger compartment on the back instead of like a panel truck or something. It has a wheelchair lift out the side. That is the standard paratransit vehicle in the industry, and that's primarily what we have turned to. Although we do also have some minivans that are also wheelchair lift equipped. What we have phased out are the sedans. And part of the important part of that, as some of you know, is that previously the fleet was owned by the contractor, by the taxi companies. And that really tied our hands as an agency. If we wanted to switch contractors, we also had to suddenly get a whole new fleet. Now we are much more in control of our own destiny. In terms of funding, if there are federal programs to pay for the operating costs of paratransit, I would jump at it. Traditionally, that has been something that comes out of the local property tax base, but the feds do provide capital funding, and we do use federal funding to pay for the paratransit vehicles and systems.
Thank you, Matt. I'd like to quickly move on to just a few more questions, and then after that, folks, I will have to limit it for time. But Commissioner Gossage, we'll go to you next, and then Larry Keeler, and then we'll end it with Council Member Ghazi Edwin.
You know, I just want to jump in quickly and say I can also talk about some of my questions offline, and then I can share with all of you later when I talk with all of you some of my thoughts, so that we can continue to move forward. But thank you, and thank you, Mr. Carpenter. This was helpful.
All right, Commissioner Gossage, you had a question.
I was going to hold my question as well, so thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Keeler?
Mine is just a quick comment, a comment or two, actually. And the first one is that at least since 1986, this was the ride was shared, and I think that's why you're getting a lot of backwash from people that have been used to using that as a shared as a same-day service since 1986 until 2018. Second of all, I think that without the shared ride, I've had my nose in a little bit of transportation, and I think that the on-time performance for them has increased a lot because they don't have the as many same-day rides to try to fit in. And I think that overall, with all the accessible vehicles, it's working out quite well. And I personally have no complaints. But then again, I can also grab the line bus, so I think it's going very well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And Mr. Carpenter, in closing, for those that have any additional questions for you in terms of this particular subject matter, and then also possibly just helpful insight for you going forward, would it be possible for us to just continue to have you as a resource, and can we reach out to you with different questions?
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to. I have a couple of colleagues with me here on the line, Robert Williams and Tracy Bird, who many of you have probably worked with over the years. They are great resources. They understand the details, frankly, far better than I do, and could probably help you very quickly. But I would be honored if you have any other questions, feel free to drop me a line. I will give you my email address. It's mcarpenter@theride.org. Pretty straightforward. And if anyone ever has a question, or this commission would like to discuss the paratransit system further, simply drop me a line. Happy to come by anytime.
Wonderful.
I know where to find all of you.
Larry knows where we are. That's right.
I do.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Carpenter, and we appreciate you and all the work that the staff at the Ride is doing to make sure that our city continues to stay accessible for all in terms of transit and navigating our great city. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, with that, I'd like to move on to the next point in our agenda, which I first just want to first of all, do a quick introduction. Some of you on this meeting may know that we have some new faces, or a new face that I'd like to introduce. We have a new commissioner, everyone, so please welcome Rosanita Radcliffe to the commission. She's been extremely diligent and is very, very informed, and I really admire her tenacity and just asking the right questions, paying attention to what is being presented in the city. And thank you, Ms. Radcliffe, for your patience with us. But we are delighted to have you, and we look forward to working with you. And I just want to open it up really quick for you to maybe just say a little bit about yourself, why you wanted to join the commission, and anything else you would like to say.
Hi, and thank you. Before we were recording, I was thanking Denise for all of the help that she gave me when I was going through the application process. A little bit about me: I was born and raised here in Ann Arbor. I do have multiple disabilities. I went out of state to college and in Arizona, worked in California. My degree was in education. I was a special education major. I taught special ed. I worked in independent and supported living for several years. I worked as the administrator of intermediate care facilities. Worked at the Independent Living Center of Southern California, also as a transition coordinator, which was helping people who had a disability, most of whom were under the age of 50, transition from living in an institutional setting, mostly skilled nursing facilities, back into community living. And now I'm back here. I spend a lot of time assisting my parents, who are both older, both of whom have disabilities. My father is blind. And I wanted to join the commission because there's a lot going on in the city. A lot of really, I was watching the commission meetings, and I think that you guys do just an amazing job of, helping to make the city more accessible for all of us. And I really like the commitment to being equitable when it comes to disabilities and not having a disability hierarchy. I think that that's really commendable. And I also just want to help, leave the city a little bit better than how I had it or currently have it, for other people in the future.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Commissioner Radcliffe. And I am so glad to have you. And, I think you'll serve as a great asset to us. So welcome.
I would agree.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
All right.
That took us a minute to get her on there. I thank her for her patience, but I'm glad she's here.
There we go. Absolutely. Well, moving on to our presentations aspect of the agenda, we have the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled, and Katie Monkevich. Welcome, Katie.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. I've just got a couple things to share with you today, starting with some events that are coming up at the library. And we have a little Earth Day seed starting event coming up on Saturday, April 22nd from 3 to 4 p.m. at the Traverwood branch. This is for pretty much all ages. It's preschool to adult. And we'll be celebrating Earth Day as the perfect time to start some seeds for your garden. Should bring the whole family, bring your friends, and you'll leave with a plant of your own to care for. We also have a poetry reading and panel discussion about bipolar disorder called Being with Bipolar, coming up on Thursday, May 11th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Pittsfield branch. Local poets Jennifer Metzger and Ellen Stone will read poetry about their experiences with bipolar disorder from different perspectives, addressing stigma and the trauma related to living life with a mental illness, as well as caring for those with a mental illness. Following the poetry reading, Michigan Medicine's Heinz C. Prechter Bipolar Research Program will host a Q&A with the audience about bipolar disorder and research advances in the field. And of course, we have Visions 2023 coming up. So save the date for Visions 2023, Technology and Services for the Blind, Visually Impaired, and Physically Disabled. This will be held on Wednesday, June 7th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the downtown Ann Arbor District Library. There'll be more information coming soon, and you can always visit aadl.org/visions for updates. We did just update that page today, and I'm happy to welcome both the Ann Arbor Council for Disability Concerns and the RIDE as vendors at this year's Vision. So it's good to be here and see you all here. As usual, for folks who are needing to order materials, those who are WLBPD patrons can order cartridges with books on them by calling 734-327-4224 or emailing wlbpd@aadl.org. And to sign up for the Braille and audio reading service, BARD, to download your own books, visit nlsbard.loc.gov or call us and we will assist with the application. And now I've got a couple of new books that you can find on BARD. We've got Newsroom Confidential, Lessons and Worries from an Ink-Stained Life by Margaret Sullivan. Sullivan began her career at the Buffalo News, where she rose from summer intern to editor-in-chief. In Newsroom Confidential, she chronicles her years in the trenches, battling sexism and throwing elbows in a highly competitive newsroom. In 2012, Sullivan was appointed the public editor of the New York Times, the first woman to hold that important role. She was in the unique position of acting on behalf of readers to weigh the actions and reporting of the paper's staff, parsing potential lapses in judgment, unethical practices, and thorny journalistic issues. Sullivan recounts how she navigated the paper's controversies, from Hillary Clinton's emails to Elon Musk's accusations of unfairness to the need of greater diversity in the newsroom. We have The Light We Carry, Overcoming in Uncertain Times by Michelle Obama. There may be no tidy solutions or pithy answers to life's big challenges, but Michelle Obama believes that we can all locate and lean on a set of tools to help us better navigate change and remain steady within flux. In The Light We Carry, she opens a frank and honest dialogue with readers, considering the questions many of us wrestle with. How do we build enduring and honest relationships? How can we discover strength and community inside our differences? What tools do we use to address feelings of self-doubt or helplessness? What do we do when it all starts to feel like too much? Michelle Obama offers readers a series of fresh stories and insightful reflections on change, challenge, and power, including her belief that when we light up for others, we can illuminate the richness and potential of the world around us, discovering deeper truths and new pathways for progress. And finally, Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Charlie Reed looks like a regular high school kid, great at baseball and football, a decent student, but he carries a heavy load. His mom was killed in a hit-and-run accident when he was 10, and grief drove his dad to drink. Charlie learned how to take care of himself and his dad. When Charlie is 17, he meets a dog named Radar and her aging master, Howard Bowditch, a recluse in a big house at the top of a big hill with a locked shed in the backyard. Sometimes strange sounds emerge from it. Charlie starts doing jobs for Mr. Bowditch and loses his heart to Radar. Then, when Bowditch dies, he leaves Charlie a cassette tape telling a story no one would believe. What Bowditch knows and has kept secret all his long life is that inside the shed is a portal to another world. And that is all I have for y'all today. Does anybody have any questions or comments for me?
Just a quick comment, Katie. Thank you so much. And I just want to say that I'm very excited for Visions in June, and I hope everyone is excited. And very good news to hear that AAATA will also be there. So wonderful, wonderful stuff. There is a question, and really quick before I get to the question, Commissioner Mozak, I just want to acknowledge Commissioner Poster as well as Commissioner Hawkins, who joined us as well. So welcome to both of you. I just wanted to let you know that you are seen, and we're glad you're here this afternoon. So thank you. Kathleen, you had a question for Katie?
Mine was more of just a comment. I wanted to say thank you so much. There was that lovely attachment on our agenda so that we could preview everything that you wanted to share. And I just found that so very helpful. And I hope that it's something that is continued. So thank you, Katie, for everything.
Oh, you're welcome. And I think that's thank you to Denise as well. So it's a shared effort. So we'll keep that up.
Okay. We also have Vice Chair Keeler's hand up as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay, Larry, go ahead.
Oh, mine's just a comment. That Stephen King book is wonderful. I just, as soon as that was up, I took it down, and it was moderately scary. But if it's not as bad as some. You probably it's a very good read.
I agree. I knew you'd like that one, Larry. It's a
Yeah.
good one.
Outstanding. Any other questions for Katie at this time? All righty. Well, thank you so much, Katie, and always to the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled and all library staff. You guys do such a wonderful job. So thank you, Katie.
All right. Thank you so much. You're welcome. And as always, thanks for having us. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Next, we have the report with the Ann Arbor, well, actually, it's I'm so sorry. I'm about to butcher the name, and I know what it is. It's the Washtenaw. Okay, I'm just going to say the Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living because it's on the agenda. Alex, you're laughing, and I know why. But hopefully they can tell us. It's Disability Network, Washtenaw, Livingston, Wayne County. There we go. I remembered it almost. Hi, Joyce. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We have rebranded from Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living to Disability Network, Washtenaw, Monroe, Livingston. Our website address is www.dnwml.org. And our phone number for access to all of the events that I'm about to announce is 734-971-0277. Thank you for that introduction. So we are a disability advocacy organization that works toward disability diversity, equity, and inclusion. Then the first event that I want to announce is next week on Tuesday, April 25th. There is a open house at the Monroe Disability Network office at 15515 South Dixie Highway from 10:30 to 1:30 p.m. The purpose of the open house is to showcase programs and introduce staff to the community. Everyone that would like to learn more is welcome to attend, but please register in advance online at our website. We are in the throes of the Disability Network Film Festival. This is the second day today, and tomorrow on April 20th, the Nothing About Us Without Us Film Festival will continue. These are short films. Some of the titles are Code of the Freaks at 10 o'clock. These movies last about an hour and 15 minutes. The next one is at 1:15 to 2:15. It's Pain Raised Me. Next one is 2:30. There's a discussion, 2:30 to 3:30, current events in advocacy. And from 3:30 to 4 o'clock, there's a wrap up and discussion of the movies that have been seen over the past 3 days. And if you're interested in attending, please register on the website. There is a 10-week, 1 hour per week cooking class being planned that will begin soon. If you are interested in participating, learning new cooking skills, socializing with other people that have disabilities, and eating a meal together afterward, please see the website to register for that participation. There is, I think, a poll right now to gauge interest. The next event is an easy and fun and engaging theater group that is being planned to build friendships and share your voice. Classes will begin May the 1st. And for more information, you can contact Robin. And all of the emails or the people that I list here can be reached by their first name with the @DN Washtenaw Monroe Livingston. So dnwml.org. The next event is Oreo Club happening this Friday, which is one of my favorites. It's 3 to 4 p.m. It's a way to eat together of something fun and connect and discuss, make friends. That is 3 to 4 o'clock p.m. and is run by Claire. Spirit Club is on hiatus as of this week until May the 17th. Spirit Club is inclusive and adaptive fitness and happens virtually. See Mark for more information. Trivia Tuesday group is run by Robin, and that it happens on Tuesdays from 4 to 5 p.m. The art programming in-person classes take place 1:30 to 3:30 in the Ann Arbor office on Mondays. And that is run by Claire. She's a wonderful art teacher, and there are also virtual options available. For more information, please register on the website for those art classes. Bi-weekly, the art class meets in person at the Monroe office from 12 to 2 p.m. The next meeting of the Spinal Cord Injury Support Group happens on Tuesday, April 25th from 12 to 1 o'clock p.m. It will now be hosted by Janine, JANEEN, at dnwml.org. The Decal Advocacy Group meets the third Wednesday, met today, but they meet the third Wednesday of the month. The next meeting will be in May from 12 to 1:30 p.m. For more information, contact Eliot, ELIOT. The Your World, Navigating Life with Blindness and Low Vision, run by Renee. Just a moment. No, lost my placeholder there. Happens. Contact Renee for more information, please. I'm sorry, I lost my placeholder.
That's Renee Eccles, right?
Sorry? Eccles.
That's Renee
yes.
Eccles, right?
Yes. And then the Caring Parents Group, which is Parents with Disabilities, meets on Tuesdays, 7 to 8 p.m. For more information, contact Celeste or Renee. And finally, I'd like to announce that Disability Network Washtenaw Monroe Livingston has a loan closet with no prescription necessary, just based upon need and desire. And you can contact the center at 734-971-0277 and ask for Christina, Ystina. I'm sorry, I lost my information I had. Oh, here it is. The Blindness Support Group meets the first Wednesday of the month, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock p.m. And it is a group that joins via Zoom. And topics will be participant driven, and sessions will empower group members to embrace their self-identities and individuality as people with low vision while strengthening belonging and community inclusion. We discuss navigating life and share resources, tips, and perspectives to help us enhance the quality and autonomy of our lives. Group facilitators are professionals from a wide variety of backgrounds who experience blindness or vision loss, and assistive technology support will be available in these groups. So you can contact Renee, RENEE, or Mark, MARK, at Disability Network Washtenaw Monroe Livingston. And that concludes the events. Thank you.
Thank
Anyone
you.
have any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joyce. And thank you to the Disability Network, Washtenaw, Monroe, and Livingston. I knew I could get it right at least once on this meeting. And yeah, thank you all. Any questions for Joyce at this time? All right. Well, thank you so much for all that you guys do and all that you continue to offer. One quick question for you, Joyce. So, what could you specify really quick what is within that loan closet you were speaking of?
Oh, sure. Things like wheelchairs, canes, other durable medical equipment, like small things, not things that are not something like a bathtub, but just small portable items. A reacher, transfer bench, are some of the things that we have in stock.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
definitely encourage everyone, if you can make it tomorrow, to see some of those filmmakers for the Nothing About Us Without Us Film Festival. An amazing program. And I think that festival is only going to continue to build. So if you guys can register and get a chance to jump on virtually to check that out tomorrow. Thank you so much, Joyce.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.
Yep. All right. Moving on, we have the Partners in Access Committee report and community engagement. But let's do Partners in Access first. So we have the Partners in Access Committee report with Alex and Rachel.
Good afternoon again, everybody. Unfortunately, I got my wires crossed a bit with Denise the other week and thought the meeting got canceled for some reason. So I was not there, at least. I'm not sure if Rachel or Larry was able to attend. If you guys have some things you want to touch on, that would be great. But I also had a couple of topics I just wanted to bring to the attention of the commission. But if Rachel or Larry, if you want to say anything first, that would be fine.
Well, I'll start, and then Rachel can get in with the community thing because she didn't have that yet.
Okay.
Basically, all I talked about was the potential. I'd like to amend the bylaws in the near future. In particular, I'd like to Article 9, Section 3, which has to do with recruiting, and I feel that the recruiting process is not well understood, and I'd like to write it into the bylaws because all the article says is that, the paraphrase is that there will be a recruiting committee, and we are responsible for recruiting people, actively recruiting people, and it just gives us the power to present to the mayor and the commission. And I'd like to outline the process that I've been using. I think that's in your packet now, and I can either talk to that more on recruiting. I can talk to that more in the recruiting committee and do that a little bit more. That's all we talked about. We had a meeting, but Alex, we held off because we held off doing things like that because we knew that you were not there, and I knew you had some topics. And so Rachel and I just talked, and we talked about that a little bit, and we didn't come to any firm decisions.
Yeah, that was.
I guess Rachel, you can go on to the community thing.
Sure.
Did you get the report?
Yes, I did. I did get the report from Melissa. Just to add to what Larry said as well, from talking about the process that Larry was using right now with recruiting, we thought that it could be beneficial to have that more standardized because Larry has, great institutional knowledge, having been on the commission for so long, and it's just really important that we, have the same protocols in each situation. So we're, doing a good job recruiting. So that is my comment on that. So for Ann Arbor Inclusive, they have a new episode premiering this Friday, which is April 21st, 4:30 p.m. on CTN. Channel 16 and also on their YouTube channel. Their guest will be the Mind Center in Farmington Hills.
Wonderful. Thank
Thank
you
you.
both. And, Larry, I completely agree with you. We're actually going to be addressing that recruiting committee later in the agenda. But if you also want to talk a little bit about more of that process and what you feel could be a new draft into the bylaws of that section that you spoke of earlier, that would be fine too under recruiting, which and thank you to Rachel and to the staff of CTN and the talents of Ann Arbor Inclusive for continuing to do a great job as well with that show. If none of the commissioners or those watching have seen Ann Arbor Inclusive, it is informative and indeed a good program. That does bring us.
Zach, actually, I was hoping I could just quickly go over two topics that I think the commission would be interested in.
Oh, sure, Alex, go ahead.
One specifically, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the group, and I can send this to Denise and to share out if that would be best. But community stakeholders were sent an email this morning from Sarah Higgins, who's the director of operations for the city, regarding the topic of downtown public restrooms. This has been a topic of discussion, presumably for quite some time, as there are no public restrooms downtown outside of, well, there aren't any. The city does think it has a solution. There's a unit called a throne, which looks similar to a porta potty, but it's probably more closer to a single-use restroom that you might see at a park or something of that nature. They have mentioned that they are going to be looking also at accessible units. The letter did not have a picture of an accessible unit, but I had reached out to Councilmember Edwin as I thought this might be a good topic for us to be connected to, especially when it gets to the point of where these things are being placed and how they're placed, just so that they are as accessible as possible, and that we have folks who would be using and in need of them being able to provide input on that as we go forward.
Yeah, could I jump in just really quick?
Please.
So in the presentation of the budget that Mr. Dohoney presented to us, he talked about this and how it's a priority for the city. And he also talked about how they identified Throne as a company because it is able to make accessible units. And the picture he showed us didn't look fully accessible. It had stairs going up to it, but he said they can be completely reconfigured. I do think that us just making sure in terms of placement, it's as accessible as possible is a really good idea for advocacy, and I can help start some of those conversations.
I completely agree, council member. I think, making sure that those designs are accessible as well as the placement, that's paramount when navigating downtown and the city. Absolutely. And it looks like we do have a couple of questions. I'll go to Commissioner Radcliffe and then Commissioner Mozak.
Thank you. Mine's just really quick. I had watched the city council meeting, and so I went to the Throne's website, and they do on the website show the outside of an accessible unit, which basically it just has a metal ramp going up to it. It did not show the inside of a unit to see if there are just how accessible it is inside, including whether or not there's the rail.
Yeah.
And on the website, it just said that they weren't available until early 2023. And so and they haven't updated that yet. So I don't know when the city would be able to get them, although I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is, proposal for the 2024 budget. And they didn't specifically talk about when they'll be working on this. But I think just having some contact with Mr. Dohoney and me letting him know in my one-on-ones with him that this is something we're talking about and to please involve us when the time is appropriate is I think the best next approach. But thank you for pointing that out, Rosanita.
Commissioner Mozak, you had a comment as well.
I did. I would like the city to strongly consider making all units accessible units. My rationale for that is that everyone can use an accessible unit. Not everyone can use a regular unit. And if they're going to go to the cost of putting them in, I don't know if their idea is just to have one unit here and there, or if they're considering putting multiple units together in a cluster. But to me, it would be the most equitable to have them all accessible. And then that way there is never, oh, well, I have to go to the restroom at 5th and Division, or not, they don't even cross 5th and William.
Yeah.
But my family is already at Liberty and State, and that's where their restroom is, but I've got to go away, far away to get to mine. So
Yeah.
I think that would be a really equitable thing for them to consider.
Yeah, that actually is the intention. It's all units will be accessible and gender inclusive, not just some. But that's still, I think placement is still an issue, right? Making sure that we're thinking about like curb cuts in the surrounding area, just in terms of traveling to the restroom. But yes, all of them will be accessible.
Well, and also making sure that the doors are also accessible, just from experience as a person with a physical disability at times. Doors can be really difficult to navigate, especially with outdoor restrooms. So also factoring that in as well.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Sure.
Just one
All
last
right.
thing, and I'll just be really quick because I know we've
Sure.
short on time. Just a reminder, though, I did get a community member reached out to me. They had some concerns about some construction that was being done near Maple and Scio Church, and to me it was a good reminder to just, if you see things out in the community that are of concern, if construction is being done and maybe something appears, even if it doesn't appear to be done yet, the construction or maybe some of the changes that are happening, to keep an eye out for those things and to share your concerns with this group or with folks from the city, so that we're making sure that things are accessible at all times when possible. I can send out pictures, but he had some concerns about some pieces of sidewalk and other paths that looked incomplete, and he wasn't sure if those were going to be made whole at any point or what, but he knew at that time that they were not accessible, especially after some of the recent storms that we'd have, because some of it was gravel path, things of that nature. I can send out more information so folks can know about that as well, but just general reminder that we always need to keep up on construction and where things are being made more challenging for folks with disabilities, and speaking out so that we can fix those issues.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex, and a very good point. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Absolutely.
Commissioner Gossage, can I ask, do you know the next steps that are happening? Is that something that I can assist with, and where exactly?
I think I guess for me, I'm not sure if the next step is talking with you to reach out to somebody, or what that would look like. So if you want to talk offline, we can do that, or here.
We can do that
too.
Yeah, let's talk offline.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I would
you.
suggest talking offline. I mean, I don't know if it's something, where that can be delegated to, but hopefully we can all help you with that.
Yeah, we'll provide an update.
Awesome. If there isn't anything else, go ahead.
Chair
Denise.
Damon, I was
Yes.
just going to let the public know that they can reach us at our website at codi@a2gov.org. So there are two links on our webpage. If you have any concerns, you can just send an email and I can pass it to whomever.
Thank you, Denise. I was actually going to say that in my chair report, that we now have the CODI email back operational. So codi@a2gov.org. Wonderful. Next, we have the Transportation Commission update with Larry Keeler.
Okay. Also, I'll have to pay attention to more construction events in the future then, because we do talk about, and that's one we just mentioned as going on. So I'll try to keep track of the transportation projects that are being done that are still operative, so that you can watch out there. We can put them on TV they're in the transportation report too, I'm sure. But mine is the public transportation was. There was more debate over the sidewalks around the Earhart area. They just don't want them. Some people want them there at the at Earhart Village, and some do not. And that's going on quite a bit. And e-bikes are coming back from the and taken over by Spin, and they're asking for 1.5 million for apps and train and improvement both. They're trying to improve both support letters passed. Okay, this is they're trying to get some money for the train station and the to help with the e-bikes coming in. And there's a thing about crosswalk. The crosswalk design guidelines were developed in 2015, and our commission was acknowledged in the making of some of these guidelines. And I specifically was acknowledged because I was there for a lot of them early safety meetings in the 2013, 12, 13, and 14, when they finally adopted the safety guidelines, but they're going to tweak them a little bit more and clean up some of the language in them because they've been around for a while and they need to be tweaked a little bit. And let's see what else I wrote here. Then, okay, however, the he feels that they need to. That's about all that was really significant. Oh, and yeah, they're trying to. Another thing is we're still trying to take care of sidewalk gaps in the city. There's a whole lot of areas in the city that don't have any sidewalk connections, and there's something like 160 miles worth of sidewalk gaps and 44 of actual sidewalk and have actual sidewalk constructions, and they're working on putting them together all around the city, which I actually approve of because I do like a sidewalk. And they're making up bike corrals to put your bikes at. You're going to have more bike corrals downtown and that sort of thing. And that's it. And as far as, I don't know, I think, did you skip the recruiting thing? I just got a brief thing on that. If you would like to hear it, unless you want to wait. But
well, Larry, I mean, go ahead, Larry.
The actual recruiting part is, I know that's the rest is on the agenda, is that I am in the process of chasing down 2 possible applicants at the current moment. And that's it for that part of it.
Okay. I was going to mention that, we will get to it under old business. We have the recruitment outline process.
Yeah, I know we'll get to it. Yeah, I knew we'd get to that part. I just wanted to mention that I was chasing down a couple more people.
No, you're on
which
top.
Which wasn't relevant to that.
Yeah,
that wasn't relevant to the other part. So, all right, go ahead. I'm done.
You're good, Larry. You're on top of it, Commissioner. I do appreciate it. Thank you for your Transportation Commission update. Next, to move forward, we have the U of M Council for Disability Concerns meeting update with Commissioner Solomon.
Hello, everyone. Reporting on the April the 11th meeting, and just to remind all of you that if you have any interest in this meeting, they're all held on Zoom. It's quite easy to get on the email list and be informed of all of the activities. So it may not be a bad idea, even if you cannot attend all the meetings. most of the meeting was taken up by a presentation by Allison Kushner, who is the Director of Disability Equity and ADA Coordinator. And that's verbiage that we might think about in our own forthcoming appointment of ADA Coordinator, whether the language of disability equity is appropriate for the position we hope the city will continue moving forward with. And I perceive that as a change from the former ADA coordinator only, Christina Klein, who, as you know, left that position several months ago. The team that we were introduced to at that meeting is called the Equity, Civil Rights, and Title IX Office. Again, that feels like new verbiage to me. And this includes Megan Marshall, the Deputy ADA Coordinator, Phil Deaton, Digital Information Accessibility Coordinator, Sarah Caruso, Administrative Specialist, Stephanie Beatty, ASL Interpreter. So the University of Michigan is investing in this area, creating at least one layer of bureaucracy around it. But there's definitely resources there that seem to have grown just in the last 6 months. Those are my major reports, just the introduction of those staff members. That was the majority of what we spoke about at the meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Solomon. And, solid point when speaking about the language and different things, that we may incorporate or may not when considering our new city position. And of course, a very good segue into the next report, since we have our Director of Organizational Equity to talk about that, among any other things that they have. Laura Orta, welcome as always.
Thank you, everyone. I am ready to send forward the job description that I shared with everyone last month. So if you have anything you would like in there, please feel free to send it my way. Matthew, to your point about the equity, the disability equity, I would want to pursue that a little longer to see what measurements would be associated with an individual doing that here in the city, right? It's great language, and I'm encouraged that the language is always moving forward in that manner, but there is a conscious effort to make certain that tangible outcomes can be shown from this individual's position. And I like to tie them back to all the bullet points so that it can clearly be communicated with the entire city what this individual is doing and how they're making a difference, and then where there may be gaps and things that we need to consider, either changing that person's job description and moving them up in the pay scale, or bringing in someone else to assist in that manner.
Is it possible to share out that draft job description one more time with the commission?
Yep, I'll send it to Zach and Denise, and then if you all could get back to me by Wednesday of next week, last week of April, then I can send it forward Thursday or Friday with any corrections that, any changes that you all provide.
Thank you.
I'd also, this is Aisha. I'd also like just to take a look at it as well. So where we won't have time to review it as a commission, because you're saying it's going to be posted next week, Laura?
So I would like to get it to legal next week, by the end of the week, so it can be posted. So it takes a month to post a job, typically. So if I can get May to work through posting the job, then the job can be posted in June. So the interviews can happen late June, and that person can start as soon as the new budget starts.
Okay.
Did we get a chance to review it earlier? I could have overlooked it in a previous communication. Was that circulated, Denise?
I believe it was. Yeah, Denise says it was. she's my brains in this matter.
Yeah. I believe it was, and I remember seeing a draft early back when. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to just recirculate it once more, if you don't mind,
Okay.
Laura. And then those who did not see it can, and we can all have an opportunity. Thank you.
I'll resend it tomorrow.
Thank you, Denise.
Okay.
And I also want to remind everyone, when you're running across issues, whether it's construction or, issue in the sidewalk, utilize that Ann Arbor Fix-It app if you are able to. You take a picture from your phone and, you send it in, and feel free in the fields to say, this is something that, the Commission on Disability CODI should be addressing and be brought into. And the more that the public uses that app, the more refined it will get, in that it will come through my office and it will land on our new ADA person's, accessibility person's desk. And so if you are able to, that app that Ann Arbor has is a fantastic way to communicate. The Parks Department just did a big accessibility study, and they're going to spend the next, I think, 20 years bringing every park up to and above the, accessibility standards. Just fantastic. But a lot of the feedback that they used were those snapshots and comments from the app that Ann Arbor has for everyone to use to report problems. And that really assisted, because the person came and looked at some parks in the winter when they were covered with snow. And so you couldn't necessarily see some of the problems with sidewalks because maybe snow was covering it. So those photos they had from the past were super helpful. So use those, kind of, push it, make it work as well as it can for everyone. As you said earlier, let's bring in all accessible things as we do new things.
Thank you, Laura. Well said. And so, yes, if we can all be diligent on, using A2 Fix-It, I think that would be great. And then really good to know, Laura, that the architectural firm, and that plan is being implemented and in place for long term with Parks and Rec. And I'd like to commend them on that effort, and hopefully they can keep us informed, long term as that continues to go through as well.
And I think myself and the new hire will be the individuals that can communicate out what's happening. I'm currently working, I've been brought into the final processes, and I'm working with Parks and Rec, and the accessibility coordinator will have a component of the plan that Parks and Rec is going to start implementing to help oversee and train and do those various awesome jobs.
Yeah, good to hear. Thank you. Anything else for Laura at this time? Any questions for her? Okay. Thank you so much, Laura. We always appreciate your presence and also your efforts as well. So next, I'd like to move to the city personnel report with Denise.
Good afternoon. The city is welcoming Nicholas Botti, police officer, Karen Finney, 15th District Court Clerk, Matthew Hoke, Police Services Special Cadet, Daniel Horning, Police Officer, Christopher Luque, Police Services Special Cadet. Retirement farewell to Frank Buchet Jr., Fleet Services Facility Maintenance Technician, Jeffrey Butts, Public Work Technician, Dennis Lynn Crum, Fleet and Facility Supervisor, Kevin Ernest, Parks and Recreation, Thomas Kopecki, Police Detective, Michael Lencini, Police Special Assignment Officer, and Patrick Mano, Public Works Supervisor. That's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Denise.
You're
for
welcome.
that. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Next, we're going to move on to the chair report. So I just wanted to, first of all, on the chair report, I did want to make an announcement about this. We still have one more meeting with her, but I just wanted to, for the public record, I don't think words can even really give an adequate thank you to Denise Janez and what she's done for our commission and for the city as our management assistant, as well as management assistant of 3 other commissions, I believe it is. So, I did see the announcement for your retirement, and although it was bittersweet because very deserved, but also sad to see you go. Again, I cannot express my deep gratitude for you, Denise, and how much of a pleasure it has been. I hope that you will keep myself and then the commission informed on who your replacement is, and that we can be introduced to them prior to your full exit, if possible.
Almost definitely.
Okay, and just thank you again for all of your efforts, and I wish you the best in your retirement. You deserve it.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. It's such a hard move to make.
We'll miss you, Denise.
I will miss you. It has
I'll
been
miss
my
you on-
pleasure.
Human Rights Commission, everything.
Yes, it has definitely been my pleasure. So thank you so much for the opportunity to serve.
I also feel the same way. I'm going to miss you a lot. You've done such great work for our commission and for our subcommittees, and you're a pleasure to work with. So congrats on your
Thank
retirement.
you. I appreciate that. It has been my pleasure. Thank you all.
Just leave a copy of you when you leave. Leave an exact copy of you when you leave, so we don't have to lose you.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
Absolutely, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Moving on in my chair report here, folks. I just wanted to, I don't know how much of you knew about this, but I just wanted to send my condolences to a former commissioner in our city who, had some very unfortunate events happen in the city. They were just taken from our city and from this earth far too soon and just randomly. And was a commissioner and had served our city very well. I believe June was on the police oversight committee.
Yes, she was a member of the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission.
Okay.
And she handled our budget and our HR recruiting for the commission and was just a wonderful commissioner.
Yeah. And so I want to just send my condolences out as a commission to her and her family, and for her service as well. And hopefully, her commitment will never be forgotten. And as commissioners, we can continue to uphold the standard that individuals like her have set. So just wanted to acknowledge that. And then also wanted to encourage all of us to attend if we can the Nothing About Us Without Us Film Festival. It does have one more day tomorrow. So if you guys are able to carve out, an hour or two just to see some of those films, talk to some of the filmmakers, and also just really understand some of the disability feelings, not only just within media, but also in advocacy and kind of what is on the forefront. I think it's very informative. So, I encourage all of you to, if you can, register for that and check it out. And if not, no problem, but check it out next year, hopefully for their 4th one as well. Also, and we'll touch a little bit on this later in the agenda, but I wanted to also encourage all of us, as announced later and up in our new business portion, I want to encourage all of us to attend the Visions Conference coming up and try to be at the table if we're not working other tables. I know many of us on the commission do many different things, but I hope that all of us can be some good boots on the ground for the commission We do not have to be there. None of you have to be there all day. But it would just be very encouraging to see some of you throughout the day if you just stop by and even, shake hands with others at tables or even try and answer questions to some community members who are looking to get involved or new residents. Or I know from my experience, we had residents from all across the state actually just come to this to see the different resources available and the different tech available. And they were in awe because, in their small town in our state of Michigan, they did not have those resources offered. And so it was, good to be able to give them information and resources. And they were so grateful. So just want to encourage all of you as members of the commission to come out at some point, whether it's for an hour, whether it's for a half hour, just to come and show your support. That's my chair report. So I'll move on to old business. So under old business, Larry touched on this briefly during recruitment, but we do have the CODI draft recruitment outline processes. And of course, in our agenda, we do have access to that. And so, there's a draft of this outline that you can review, and there's about 6 steps to this. And the 6th step, of course, is to write an amendment to bylaws so that we can add these processes into our bylaws. But right now, the processes look like this. So to review all applicants and to do that at the PIA Partners in Access meeting, and then to have a resolution and to interview possible candidates and sort of find out their interest, and then present chosen applicants or an applicant to the commission via Zoom during the public comment with the Q&A, and then also move to allow the commission to vote for the prospective candidate, and then of course to send our request to the mayor's office and to city council for approval. So that is kind of, I think, a very adequate recruitment processes and outline of our processes going forward. Vice Chairman Keeler, did you have anything to add?
This is a rough outline, and so in PIA we could tweak that up a little bit, but because I don't want to exclude the fact that we can either have the candidate, for example, attend a live meeting or be on Zoom with us. If we the PIA might not have to review an application, but if one of us recruiting members do, that's fine. But I also want to make it clear that if, like, for example, I review a applicant, I get and I get them get a hold of them in some fashion by email or phone, that does not mean that I can't that all the commissioners won't also have access to the application. I want to make sure that everybody knows that they have an access to the applications as well, so that they can review them just as well as I can. And that's all I have to say. I like the rough outline, but it's definitely needing to be tweaked, I think. And I would like to put it into the amendment. I would like to amend the recruiting thing, because in the future, if I'm not on the commission or if there's some questions about recruiting, I'd like it to be right there in the bylaws so you can see it. Mm-hmm. It can be the same general procedure every time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because by what it says in that article, it only gives the recruiting committee the power to pass on an application to the commission, and it doesn't even say that the commission has to do anything about it except pass it to the mayor. So in theory, you could skip all these things, but I want to do that. I want to be as open as possible.
Right, absolutely. Commissioner Solomon, you have a question.
One, thank you for preparing this. I think it's a really good idea. My just one question strictly for clarification is point number 2, which reads resolution to interview possible candidate. Is the suggestion here that we as a whole body would do that, or would the partners in access really have the autonomy to go ahead and interview somebody without first, because of delays? That's my concern there.
Actually, my reasoning for an interview by either the recruiting chair or the PIA committee is to see if they're going to be, well, to be honest, to see if they're going to be a good fit, because we've gotten some applicants who would be less than a good fit. So it's sort of a gatekeeping thing. I think
it's very wise.
They get interviewed twice.
Okay.
They would get interviewed twice, interviewed by PIA or the recruiting chair, and then they would have a chance to get interviewed again in the commission. The whole commission would be able to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
So there'd be
necessary
basically two interviews.
but I'd be curious. Again, I think it's very important to have this procedure. I'm just wondering if we could streamline it even a little bit further. I don't know.
Yeah, these are all good questions. So
No, they are.
Yeah. So I guess, my question to all of you, to the commission, should we then just, continue to, review this and discuss it again at the next meeting? Or Larry, is there a motion that you're looking for on this? What do we think are the next?
I'm not. I would move that we send it. We work on it in PIA if Alex and Rachel are willing to do that. That we work on it in PIA and that suggestions be sent to the members of the PIA committee. Me, Commissioner Gossage, and Commissioner Hawkins, and
Okay.
if you have any suggestions, we can do that in PIA and then present it again. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, Vice
I think
Chairman, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just to add to what Larry said, I think our main goal was just to keep the full commission updated on what our initial thoughts were. This isn't anything definitive at this point, but we thought it was better to bring it as a rough draft and then bring it back with, greater details at a later point. We just wanted to make sure everyone was in agreement with the basic idea so we could work on it and flesh it out more. Thanks.
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. And so Commissioner Solomon, yeah, I would say any, additional fine tuning that you view that needs to be in this process, feel free to send that to Commissioner Gossage and Commissioner Hawkins, as well as to Vice Chairman Keeler, so that they can implement that. And then we can then review this again at the May meeting with hopefully a bit more. Go ahead, Larry.
I'll say one other thing. I will continue to operate pretty much under that process until we refine it, and if we change it at all, I'm going to continue to operate under that process until we decide what we're going to do with it.
Understood.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea to use that process, because that way the commissioners get to be involved and everybody gets to be involved.
Yep. I like that. And I think it's fair. Absolutely. So does anybody have any additional questions about this draft of the recruitment outline processes at this point? Okay. Awesome. All right, next, I didn't know if there was any city council update to be had. Council member Edwin?
Yeah, there are a few kind of ongoing accessibility issues that I've been working on. One is, as I talked about, the Main Street closings that happened during the summer. where we're going to close Main Street and several adjacent streets as well. I've been working with DDA, Maura Thompson, on allocating more accessible spaces, parking spaces, immediately, adjacent to where these closures are going to happen. They've approved 3 parking spots. Previously, they approved 5, but after their assessment, they did say there was a lack of accessible parking. So it's good that I brought it up. And now I'm working with them on how do we kind of integrate accessible paths into our maps, our parking maps that are available online, so that people with disabilities can plan their trips in advance. Like if Main Street is closed, I would park here to be by a curb cut. I would have to traverse this way, or just making sure that accessible routes are also present in some of these maps. I'll keep you all updated, but that's progressing. And then the other thing is, speaking of DDA, during our meeting, I reached out to Milton about the downtown restrooms and us participating in the placement analysis. And his response is, firstly, he confirmed and said, yes, every unit that will be leased will be accessible and gender inclusive. So he confirmed that. He also said that, the placement will have to do with infrastructure, electricity, sidewalk width, etc. But he's supportive of us participating in that process. And Maura Thompson, or the executive director of the DDA, is part of the working group who's leading the placement analysis of these bathrooms. And she's going to extend an invitation to us to participate.
Awesome. That would be great.
Yep. The other thing that I had a few other things. There has been ongoing, actually, why don't I stop here, and Kathleen, if you want to jump in with a question, please go ahead.
Yeah, you have a comment?
Thank you. I just wanted to share, thank you for getting us more involved in terms of the placement. Some of the things that I found in the past is an able-bodied person is not necessarily going to see. So if they're actually able to tell us their possible site plans and to have persons with disabilities actually physically view those sites from a disabled point of view. Because I know that there are times where, especially during the art fair or summer festival, things will happen and I'll say, hey, this is not accessible. Why did you do this? And they're like, well, I can do this, or this person can do that. I'm like, but I'm in a wheelchair and you don't have a curb cut, or you don't have this, or you don't have that.
Okay.
So I think that having our eyes on it is going to be extremely helpful. So thank you for initiating that.
I agree. And I think that's something that, I think what's happening now is it's the beginning stages of this work group formation. So they'll invite us in. But I think that part of best practice is really to be evaluating accessible infrastructure, is making sure that people with disabilities actually use it and see it and, or experience it and give feedback. So I think that's something that we should state.
Completely agreed. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So there's, other kind of ongoing updates. There's been something around, actually, I'll wait to share the date because I'm working with the state legislature. Let me just, another issue is, at the state level, there hopefully is going to be some change to some minimum wage. And I have been thinking about the possibility of us as a commission writing a resolution in support of it. We can't ban sub minimum wage here, but we can call upon the state to do something about it. And from what I've heard, it is being taken up by a senator. So I think that this is something that, in terms of next steps, maybe we can form a work group on. Well, first, let me ask, are you guys interested?
Yeah, I mean, I don't speak for the full commission, but commissioners, are we interested on this? I'm definitely interested in, backing this and, fighting for this. I think it's important. What do the other commissioners think?
I'm interested in backing it, but how much teeth do we have?
I mean, we can put things in there, and I'm going to have to get clarity also from legal on how much power we would actually have, but we can put things in there like directing our city administrator to advocate for this when he meets with our representatives, when he meets with state officials. I mean, that's what we did with The resolution I recently wrote about DTE and energy equity, advocating for things like compensating ratepayers beyond $35 when there's an outage. So there might be some things that we can do, but I think that we should definitely get the opinion of legal in on this as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know that there's a couple commissioners, council member that have their hands up here. I believe Commissioner Gossage and Commissioner Solomon.
No, Commissioner Solomon.
Yeah, I kind of would prefer that we stick to our purview. And I think if there's a rider in there about employing people with disabilities, that's something I can get behind. But employing people with disabilities remains a major problem, whatever is the minimum wage situation, which I sympathize with. But I do think we have a larger issue, which is about all of the obstacles there are out there to employing people with disabilities. And that's where I think my focus would prefer to be.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Are you saying that this more so should be a call for just in general increased employment of people with disabilities? Or is it something you want mentioned?
I think that our charge relates to the employment gap between people with and without disabilities, which I think is significant. I don't have the statistics before me, but I think if we're going to get behind something, that's what I would want to see addressed. And I'm worried that this issue, however pressing, might take our energies away from what I would see our purview is. Can we make change in terms of increasing employment for people with disabilities?
Yeah, I mean, I can let maybe a few others go as well, but part of this is because I believe it's 14C requirements around like how much money a person with disability can make. And it's also, when you're paying people below a living wage, that's a real deterrent to employment. And there's businesses in Arbor like Biddy and Bose that operate with a dedication to we're not going to pay people a sub minimum wage, but they only employ people with disabilities. So I think by us writing a resolution, it could put pressure on state legislatures to act. Them knowing that a city like ours, that is very involved and very democratically powerful, is saying that we don't want to practice this in our city, and we want you to change state laws that preempt it.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, people with disabilities have the highest rates of poverty and some of the lowest unemployment of all groups.
Yes.
There are
Councilmember Debbie Poster, and then Commissioner Radcliffe.
I was just going to mention that the rate of unemployment is very high with disability groups. About 64% of the people are not employed if you're disabled. It's very hard to find a job that without getting it took me a good year to find a job that, excuse my dog, that would allow me to work for them without having to jump through hoops with vocational rehabilitation. I just went out on my own and did it after that point, because they had a certain requirement that I would have to meet if I went through them. So I'm just saying that it's very hard to find there's a lot of discrimination, I guess, when it goes to finding a job out there right now, at least in a person with a wheelchair. Because when I was walking with the cane, I had no trouble getting a job. But as soon as I got in a wheelchair, I had a very difficult time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Okay.
Commissioner Radcliffe, you had a question, and Commissioner Gossage, did you as well?
I guess regarding the sub minimum wage, yes, while for some people who have disabilities, there is an income restriction based on if they have SSI, or I think in how much you can work if you have SSDI, right? So that's also a restriction. However, just in general, people with disabilities make like 60 cents on the dollar, you know, when compared to someone who doesn't have a disability, right? And so I do think that making sure that there is a fair wage for people who have disabilities is important. It may not be that if they're going from a sub-minimum wage to a true minimum wage, that they're not going to work as many hours, but they also may be making more money or making up for that. And so I don't necessarily think it's an either or where you fight for employment or you fight for minimum eradicating sub-minimum wage. I think both of those are equally important and they go hand in hand. The other thing too is I don't know if we track this or how we track this or if the state tracks it exactly, but you know, when we talk about contractors, right? How many of the contractors do you know have, do we specifically, is there a way to know if they have a disability or not? Do they self-identify?
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer to it. I don't know the answer to it. What I do know is that labor at the state level is also working on this at the state level because they've realized obviously this is an employment issue and sub-minimum wage is employee discrimination, right? I don't know your question. I don't know the answer to your question about contractors, but I can find out. And if this was a work group, it wouldn't just have to be, you know, focused on the sub-minimum wage resolution, but finding out more in general about how employment and lack of employment is affecting our community, I think is important for us.
Yeah, I would agree. Commissioner Gossett, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess I will echo, I think, a bit of what Commissioner Ratcliffe was saying is that this is part of that employment issue all around. And really, when we're talking about sub-minimum wage, it's a very small piece of the entire picture as it goes with employment for folks with disabilities. This is these are employers who have been given specific permission through a process from the government to employ people with disabilities at sub-minimum wage. So this is not something that's done across the board well, it could be done, I guess, in theory, across the board, and that would be illegal as well. But it's to end this legalized practice of ending sub-minimum wage for these employers and pushing all employers to make sure that they are creating equitable spaces for employment of people with disabilities. And so really this is, I think this would be a great topic for a subgroup. I think employment would be a great topic for a subgroup as well. But I guess I would urge us, I think this is a topic that's really important, and I would be definitely in favor of being part of a resolution to support that.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Commissioner Gossage. I think a work group would be most beneficial. And, you know, employment is, again, as you stated, you know, a huge issue amongst our community. And, you know, I think, you know, we could definitely do some good work there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I have a draft of something that has been drafted up by the AFL-CIO asking clerks to sign. I think that we have a lot of opportunity to get research from different sources, and we're all involved in all these different disability organizations. So if there's no other questions, I guess Zach and Alex, in terms of next steps, what do you think is best here to get the work started?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think as far as next steps, you know, just setting a time to meet and talk more about this, you know, and kind of begin the processes here. And I'm sorry, I just want to make sure everyone has a fair opportunity to speak. Laura, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to speak to the contractors for the city and what knowledge we have of them. That's actually one of the first issues that I brought up when I started here, that we don't collect a lot of demographics. It is self-reported right now if individuals want to I have updated some of our language to request self-reporting a lot more firmly when working with the city or applying to work with the city, because to me, it's everyone that applies and then who gets selected that we need to be tracking. And the biggest issue with all of that is we have one person who does all the procurement of everything for the city, and they would really need a lot of help to make certain the process runs smoothly, but it is something we're working on behind the scenes.
Good to know. Thank
Thanks
you.
thanks for answering that. And yeah, I know it's something that the federal government is looking at too, is the tracking.
Absolutely. So yeah, council member, to answer your question, I think the best next steps is to initiate this working group with commissioners that are interested. I don't know necessarily. I mean, is it as simple as just sending those interested parties a calendar invite, and then we kind of begin. I mean, I'd be happy to jump on a call and sort of begin.
Yeah, I think what I can do is I can draft something up, and then have the attorneys look at it and have you all look at it. So that's where we start.
Sure. That's fine.
And then you all can add to it.
Yep. Okay.
And I'm not aiming to do this until, because there's other, issues on the agenda, probably mid-May. So just know that as well, but I'm going to continue to update you all as I do research and I work on this. So then we actually have something that we can go over and you all can add to and give feedback.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Chair Damon, Vice Chair Keeler has his hand up.
All right, Vice Chairman.
Yes, unfortunately, I have a couple things to do, so I have to leave the meeting. But for the announcement section, I forgot to mention that there is a transportation meeting, which I gotta be at 7. I've got to do a few things before then, and it can be seen on CTN or Channel 16 on the cable. And with that, I have to leave, unfortunately.
No problem, Larry. I was just going to ask if there were any other additional announcements. So thank you for that.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Larry. All right. With that, are there any other additional announcements before we adjourn? All right. Well, it is now 6:01, so I will call our adjournment for this Commission on Disability Issues meeting. I'd like to thank our commission, the City of Ann Arbor, the Community Television Network, and all involved with making sure that our commission, as well as all commissions, continue to do great things. Thank you very much, everyone, and we will be in touch. See you next month.
Thank you.